All right, so we got the V4R here. Sorry, the V4 SL here and the V4R. And the V4 SL is a really unique bike. There's only 500 of these homologated. And this one actually is numbered on the key. See right here, this is a number 346 of 500. I think it's really cool, they number the actual key on it. And this bike, of course, handmade, start to finish, at least the engine is. You see it right there, they even sign the engine. Insane, right? Everything's carbon. This is all carbon. The fairings are titanium. This is aluminum right here on the tank. That's the only thing I think is aluminum on this bike. Even the shock, this spring right here is titanium, made by Ohlins. The spring is titanium. The actual swing arm itself is the most expensive single component on this motorcycle at $20,000. They throw away 30% of these because they have to x-ray them and they find microfractures, then they're gone. The engine itself has 600 different part numbers than its brother, the V4R. And that's really just due to an F1 designer they brought in to mess with just this bike to start drilling holes in things like the starter gear, the camshaft. They start drilling holes in it to pull grams out, and that equates to quite a bit of weight at the end of the day here when you factor in all the carbon fiber, all the titanium, all the stuff they added. I mean, even under the seat here, that's a titanium bolt right there. Titanium bolt just for the seat. They went that far. Even the diagnostic port sits in there, no longer sits here. They've done a lot of little changes. To the layman, they probably go, oh, the wings are bigger. Well, yeah, but there's a lot more than that. Like I said, every single component on this is carbon fiber versus that stock. I mean, I know K's is all carbon fiber as well, but stock, those are all plastics. Whereas this is all carbon fiber and painted. This is how this comes. He had to actually get, I think he said Illenberger, get this and do a custom paint job on it and everything. So this is a one-off one right here. This is not your typical V4R. It has some really cool stuff like the Rotobox wheels on it, Rotobox billets, wheels that has a forged, plus the twill carbon on there. Really nice addition. We're looking at the same exact exhaust, Acra on both, same exact air filters. We've got Sprint air filters on both of them. There are little changes on these bikes. It's kind of crazy. I mean, you can see even just the triple clamp there, triple clamp here, suspension, of course. Is different than the full Ohlins. Of course, we've got more aero on this, which may actually counteract all those benefits of the weight savings. And if you go more top end, these wings, they actually have more downforce than the GP20 Ducati bike in MotoGP. That's how crazy these things are. This bike, the V4 and the V4R, also make 10 less horsepower than a World Superbike that they actually race in World Superbike. Only 10 less horsepower, that's it. Both these have dry clutches. You can see right there. Full tank. This has a different kind of rear set. This is integrated into the heat shield, which I have not seen on a V4R, a V4, anything like that. I haven't seen the heel guard integrated into the heat shield like that. But for, honestly, $100,000, they could do better on the rear sets than this, in my opinion. I can see Kay here's got, who's the rear sets of these, Kay? Ducati. So he's got Ducati. They're a very known company for Ducati, a performance company. They make a lot of cool stuff for Ducati. This is basically just a track version of a V4R, which is a track version of a V4. So it's kind of the track or the track plus version of the V4 itself. And at a $100,000 price point, it has all, and I mean all, of the bells and whistles on here, including the mapping that comes from this has race fueling already on it. I mean, we're talking there's not much to be given on this bike. Whereas Kay's bike, we've done it before. You have a good map on it. He rides it. He likes the way the map feels. No issues there with his. We're going to try to compare this bike on the dyno versus this bike on the dyno, but we'll baseline this one first and then we'll actually tune it and see what the difference is. It shouldn't be too crazy, honestly, because the mapping here is insane. So maybe a couple more. That's about it. But usually these SLs don't actually have the same horsepower ratings between SL to SL because the individual person builds these things. The timing may be a little different, the cam timing, stuff like that. They make a little different numbers than the actual V4R does. So let's get these things in the dyno right now. K's V4R will be up first, then we're gonna do the SL. See exactly how much power we got. And before the dyno, what we're gonna be doing first is making sure our tire pressure is even bike to bike, because if this bike has 10 more pounds than that bike, it's gonna dyno a lot more power. So let's make sure we're evenly matched here so we have even apples to apples results. All right, so we got this one, K's V4, 32.8. So I'm gonna put that at 35 PSI. That should be 35. There you are, 35, perfect. 30, match to the 35. 32. 35 exactly. Now we're even. Okay, what do you think she should do on the dyno?
Ideally, I would have liked to hit 210, but we'll see.
All right, so we just got done dynoing Kay's bike here, and we got some surprising results. 200 wheel horsepower, it's perfectly normal stuff, to be honest with you, on a V4R, right around that range on 91 pump gas. That's ACN 91, that means California pump gas. We are looking here at a 200 rear wheel, 201 rear wheel pass. Now, you're seeing a little hiccup there. That's actually the clutch is gonna be going a little bit right there. So the clutch, we felt this on the dyno, the bike warms up a little bit, the clutch kind of starts to wander around. He definitely needs to swap the clutch out. It's a little burned. He said there's 800 miles on this clutch. Guessing maybe incorrect stack height, something is not set. It should last at least 1,500 to 2,000 miles. I mean, these clutches, these dry clutches are not known to last a long time, but 800 bucks or 800 miles is a little excessive for use on it. And that's the only thing that is slipping on this dyno. Everything else is perfect on this bike. So if the clutch was perfect, maybe we make a hair more, maybe a wheel more or two. You see it made 201 with the clutch slipping. On the top of me, you can see right there, right around 12,000 RPM, it's slipping up. Now this is an OTS map by BT Moto, meaning this is our off-the-shelf map, OTS, and that means this is the map that we give to every other customer. We didn't revise the map even, we just put a sniffer on just to verify everything was good, and she's good, she's running great. As far as this running like a 12.3 AFR up top, it's good because we have this ram air coming through here, and we can only simulate about 60 miles per hour of air through there. That means when he's on the road going, you know, in Mexico going about 200 miles an hour, or his CG, his computer generated videos that he does, the ram air effect will actually lean this bike out a little bit. So you want to make sure on the dyno it's a little bit rich. I know a lot of people like to put their dyno queens on and make sure they make a nice big number. This is going to be good for the street, and we're verifying it on the dyno. That's all we're doing here. So now we've seen this makes a little over 200 rear wheel horsepower. We're going to throw on the super leg that has the same exact mods this bike does as far as airflow. There's no engine mods on the super leg, it's stock. So we got the Superleggera on the dyno. I'm noticing something. We have, of course, the light's in the way here. Service, you can see it right there. Service reminder right there. So there's actually, we've been working on this with the handheld to actually reset service reminders. So the diagnostic port on this Superleggera is actually right here. Usually it's right under the seat here, but it's right here. Diagnostic right there. We're gonna plug in the handheld and see if we can reset the service light with the handheld. That's a new feature for V4s. All right, I haven't done anything pre-production on this. It's the first time I'm looking at this with you guys. So work, we're gonna go to tool. We're gonna go to adjustments. I think it's under adjustments, we'll see. Okay, service light reset. Let's try. On, yeah. Run service light clearing, yeah. Let's do that. All right, switch the dashboard off, off. Again, it's the first time I'm doing this with you guys, so it may fail, who knows, successfully. Now let's see if we've got no service light anymore. Racing Evo means it has the Ducati up map. It still says service. Service. So it says oil 74.53, Desmo 13, annual service. I think this is an annual service, not a oil service, but annual service. You can see it says 2/1/23. That's a little bit over. Okay, so let's go here. Let's go to back. Let's make sure it's 74 and 1300. How many miles does this bike have on it actually? Exit, miles, total miles, 1,000 miles on it. So it's definitely not an oil light. It's definitely a yearly service. So this will clear the oil light from it, but it will not clear the actual annual service light. So no on the annual service, guys, but yes on the oil. All right, now we got the V4 SL on here. Again, this has Acra. It has a P08 filter, so high flow filter. Basically the same modifications K has, except this bike has the Ducati up map. But we'll see if the SL can beat the V4R with the Ducati up map versus K's bike with our mapping and his mods, which are basically the same. This is the owner here. His name is Andre. How much power do you think he's gonna make, Andre?
206.
206, okay.
I'm going with 206.
Do you think he'll go 206? All right. So 206, K. Where's K at? How much power do you think this thing's gonna put down?
I don't know, man. Since mine did 200. If this does more than 205, I'm selling this. You guys will hear it first.
He's gonna sell it.
This is gonna be for sale.
So who really knows if we have a completely healthy clutch, it may have made a little more, maybe a couple more horsepower over 200, but we're not gonna make excuses here. Let's see what this thing does right now. All right, all wrapped up with the baseline of the Ducati Superleggera. And this is very, very interesting. This bike made a total of 209 rear wheel horsepower, 76 rear wheel torque, which is 9 more wheel horsepower peak to peak than K's bike. And you can see the AFR right there. Now let's go ahead and shrink this down. And this of course has the Ducati up map in it. So we're making more power peak to peak with this bike, the SL, versus K's bike. Now let's go to K's bike, which had the clutch slipping. And I'll show you another V4R too, just so I can't use that as an excuse all the time as the clutch is slipping. So there's K's bike right there. You can see right there. Now here's the interesting part. People love this peak to peak number. They're like, oh, well, the Superleggera is making 9 wheel more horsepower, so it's a better bike. Well, no. It's only making that horsepower at 14,700 RPM. Only then it starts making more than the V4R. The V4R up until that point makes more power everywhere to the point where it's, check that, it's 14 rear wheel horsepower at about 11,000 something RPM right there, and 7 wheel torque more. And through the entire curve, the V4 is making more power, even with the bad clutch. Now, let me take a V4. So here to put the SL back up here again, that's the SL right there. And let's go ahead and take a known bike that has a good clutch that made 203. That's another V4R that I did on the dyno here. And you can see it's making even more power. Now that makes sense because, you know, K's bike had an issue with the clutch. But you can see that's 14 rear wheel, that is 7 wheel torque. Even there's nowhere this bike is not making more power except right here, 202, 202 at 15,000 RPM. It finally starts making more power. So if we were to race this bike versus K's bike, and let's say K's bike is in good condition again, which I'm sure he'll get it sorted out pretty quick, this bike will get rinsed. I guarantee it. Because where it's making that little bit of extra horsepower on the graph, it's not going to matter in a race because you're typically shifting right around. The RPM is going to fall down here. I mean, you're going to see this bike is generally making more power than the SL. But the SL has a nice peak power. In fact, that's crazy. The only thing I can, Ducati to Ducati, usually they're a little bit different. So right now, we're gonna tune this bike with our tuning now, and we're gonna compare it back to back, the SL stock, same strap, we're gonna leave it just like this, sitting on the dyno. We're gonna get the file right now. We're gonna put that SL up here. This will be the baseline, 209, it's the best number I got. You can see that's the 5th pull right there, 5th pass. All right, Kay, so the SL right here, made 209. Do you have any thoughts on that?
V4R is for sale. Let me know in the comments.
V4R is for sale.
In the comments, slide in my DMs, but I'm just joking.
It's
L
okay.
day for me.
We're gonna race this bike, the SL,
Yes.
versus his V4R when he gets his clutch sorted out.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out when we race them. You're gonna be on the Super Leg most likely, and I'll be on my R.
Sounds good.
And we'll see what they can really do.
Yeah, I think your bike's gonna beat Cheeks against this one because this one's making peak numbers. It's a dyno queen.
Don't forget, this should be lighter. You have a
It
full,
is lighter.
Yeah,
it's true. That is very
you
true.
should have a full carbon, frame, subframe, and spring
Yep.
bar, which I don't have. Everything else on my bike is carbon, so technically I say it's full carbon. I have carbon wheels and all that, and all the fairings. But obviously, I'm not gonna spend like 15, 20 grand.
The
for a
swing arm
carbon
itself,
swing arm.
the swing arm itself is $20,000.
Long story short, I spent about altogether with the bike price $100,000 to over $100,000 building my V4R. Long story short, just buy a Super Leg for $100 because you're gonna have a lot more carbon and more titanium as well, and you're gonna make more power. So that's what we learned today. Don't do what I did.
I
Don't
still like
make
your
a custom
V4R. I still like your V4R, man.
I love it too.
Too hard on
Don't get me wrong.
yourself.
It's very one of one, custom for me, but this makes a lot more sense. If you want to do the custom route, sure, get a V4R, spend another at least 50 G's to get all these parts and install them, versus just peace of mind, get this ready. And you're gonna put a tune in this now. Let's see if it makes even more.
I'm curious how it's gonna do against the stock baseline. We'll see how it does.
Watch it be over 210. Then my bike will really be first.
I don't know about peak. I'd like to get that mid-range back, to be honest with you, because
Yeah.
it's really failing in the mid-range right now.
Let's see. I'm excited for this. I love dyno days.
All right, so we're here with the V4 Superleggera. Put the file in it right now, live. As soon as this thing wraps up, we're gonna get it on the dyno again. We're gonna see what it does against that 209 number. See if there's any gain, any loss, whatever. This is our OTS map meaning off the shelf as we give customers. All right, wrapped up with tuning the V4 SL. We got some surprising results. Our mapping, the BT Moto mapping, really didn't do much. This mapping from the factory on the SL is pretty full tilt, right from the rip. We start separating right around here, and we're not talking by much. So you can see our blue map making a hair more power, and it just makes a hair more, all the way up to that factory red line of 16,000 in fifth gear. And we extended to 500 more, just to give it a wider power band, because we know that K's bike at 15,000 here, that's where K's bike stops making power, and this bike will start making power over it. So we're trying to give it a little more red lines, so it'll be a little more of a fair race, because I think we raced K on this bike the way it was, the factory up map. I think K would destroy this bike. Now, I really tried to ring this bike out to get it over to 210 on the stock map. I couldn't. This made 210. Within a few pulls, when it started repeating a number, it was 210. So it does make a hair more power, and nothing crazy though. So if you look at this, it's not impressive by mapping, but the rideability at low RPMs, stop and go stuff, the way you roll into the throttle is gonna be a lot better with our mapping. So let's see a few maps here, okay? So we've got, this is the V4 Superleggera right here, all right, with our mapping on it. Now we've got, I'm gonna pull up K's bike here. Yeah, we're gonna pull up number 2 here because the clutch was not slipping there. So you can see K's bike here. Now we're trading hands here at 15,000 RPM. You can see now the SL has a good advantage right here. At least we're giving it a fighting chance up top here. We're still getting that lazy mid-range, and I think that's because Ducati, when they do their engine work, and this is not confirmed, it's just me guessing, there's something to do with the intake and exhaust cams, because that's usually what happens. You start losing everything down here, but you gain a little bit up top. But to me, this is not worth it. I'd rather have the V4R, especially for the track, because the track, you're not racing from 15 to 16,000. You're racing pretty much from anything 10,000 onward, basically. It needs to have a good map, and I think the V4R shines above the SL in this circumstance only. Now, if we're gonna go to a bike, another V4 that has a good clutch in it, you can see right there we're at 203. Now, I think K's bike may have made maybe 1 or 2 horsepower, so about the same as this, but you can see right there we start separating. A little more power, nothing crazy though. They about lead the same as each other. So that's the V4R right there. Now, if you guys actually want to see a V4, which I think is great for the street, but not for the track. If you're a track guy, you get a V4R, you get a V4 SL, but if you're on the street, you get a standard V4. And let me show you what a V4 looks like here. Oh, there we go. There's a V4 right there. This is a V4 SP 2021, made a great peak number, 207 right there on this run. But you can see how much more power we are making. I mean, it's 30 wheel horsepower in the mid-range at 10,000 RPM. That is ridiculous. That's absolutely absurd. And then we're looking at 15 wheel torque difference right there between the maps. But you can see this bike is done. It is spent at 14,000 RPM, where as the V4R and the V4 SL just keep on going and going and going. That's why at the track, you're gonna see the advantage to the V4R and the V4 SL. On the street, light to light, the V4, big advantage. And it really feels, if you guys have ridden a V4 versus a V4R, the V4 feels like it's so torquey. There's just endless amounts of power on tap. Whereas the V4R feels like you gotta twist that throttle. You definitely feel a lot more to twist that throttle just to get to the same speed the V4 is going. Whereas the V4 just feels like an animal you're unleashing, basically, the entire RPM range. But it does call it quits a little early. So it's interesting, all these little numbers here and how many bikes we've had in this dyno. So I know it's the same exact dyno, same exact setting, same exact everything. I try to strap everything the same tire pressure, 35 PSI, cold in the rear for everything. Let me even try to pull up our BMW M1000RR here. I'll show you guys the difference between that bike and the rest of these bikes. So here we go, our M1000RR here in black. So that's the number right here. Now, this is a big contribution to that shift cam. The shift cam right here is just massive. It's carrying above even the V4. Look at that. So the shift cam comes on at 9,000 RPM and switches it right around there. And you can see the V4 starts carrying over it up top. Not by much, but you can see where the M1000R is good for most of this RPM range with the V4. Then you have the V4R, which has a lot more RPM, which I would consider, if you're a track guy, V4R over the M1000RR, unless you're just like a BMW. I do think it's a gorgeous bike. I'm kind of preferential towards it, of course. And then, of course, the V4 SL, you're here shining above the rest at the track. But those are some great numbers and some great data for you guys. Everything in the same dyno, same pump fuel, same strap, same tire pressure. I try to keep everything as even as possible on this stuff. But of course, there's gonna be some variables here and there. But of course, all these bikes have warmed up. As I explained to Kay, we started gaining. Let's hear, let me show you guys the SL. So V4 SL, first pull 206. Last pull, 210. Wow, looks like we made a whole lot of power right there. Now I could have manipulated the numbers right here to show you guys, wow, look what our mapping did, blah, blah. And a lot of tuners will do this kind of thing. That's the crazy part. So make sure you don't get that run zero file and they're comparing that to the last file, because the bike's still cold. And I even warmed it up. Kay watched me warm this thing up for like a couple minutes on the dyno. So that wasn't a cold pull at all. That was a warm pull, and it still made 4-wheel horsepower, even after warming up. So what I do is I warm the bikes up, dyno them after they're warm, and then I wait till I repeat a number. After I'm done repeating a number, we're good. Move to the next map and use that repeated number as your best number for that mapping. Don't do cold versus hot, because that is a manipulation right there. I mean, you can even see here when we change the mapping on the Superleggera.
210.
So Superleggera here, we changed the mapping. Here we go, first map, BT right there. So imagine this one right here versus this one. That looks like two different maps, but it's the same exact map, except one pull is warm, one pull is cold. That's it, that's the only difference. So please be aware of this, guys, when you're dynoing your stuff and you go into a room and the guy's like, oh, here's how much more power I made than the other map. It's significant, it's a couple horsepower, but it's only cold versus hot pulls. There's whole kinds of stuff you can do to manipulate dynos. We made a whole video on it. You can see there on the top right. I think these bikes made great numbers. Can't wait to see these things on the streets, how well they do against each other, the V4 SL versus the V4, which is coming soon. I just got done riding it home. What a bike. This is such an insane bike, and I'll be doing more of like a ride review with Kay when I race him finally against his V4R with this bike. But man, the rideability from down low in the mid-range is so much better. I can actually ride this thing at like 2,000, 3,000 RPMs on a steady RPM without it jerking, bucking around. Amazing. So the bike's rideability has changed a lot, and I think what they're trying to do here with the bike is adjusting that cam timing so we're making more power up top where you're actually at the track versus at the bottom end of the RPM range. And you can see I showed you guys this back there, but it's handcrafted, and it's the cam set timing was actually hand set by one person. So every single one of these bikes is a little bit different, I'd say, because every single one we do has a little different power and a different power band. But nonetheless, great bike, awesome to ride, and I would just recommend this bike for just track guys only. Of course, this is like a huge flex bike, so you buy it to kind of put in your living room or put in your garage, but this guy actually rides it, so good for him. That'll wrap up this dyno video, and I'll see you guys on the next video, which is going to be me versus Kay. I'll see you guys in the next one.